In tonight's headlines, the Observatory issued the strong wind number 3 Tropical Cyclone Warning Signal earlier in the evening as Typhoon Yagi edges closer to the city. Engine trouble with its Airbus A350 fleet forces Cathay Pacific to ground another 22 flights, taking the total number of cancellations this week to 90. And a former New York government official accused of working as an agent for China in return for millions of dollars in kickbacks.
Strong wind signal number 3 is in effect and will remain in force at least until noon tomorrow, as Typhoon Yagi has intensified to severe typhoon as it edges closer to the western coast of China. The observatory upgraded the signal at 6:40 p.m. and expected wind speeds to reach 41 to 62 kilometers per hour. Yagi is forecasted to move west at about 10 kilometers per hour across the northern part of the South China Sea and intensify gradually. The weather forecaster said it will assess the need to issue higher warning signals between tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night, depending on the movement and change of intensity of Yagi. It also urged citizens to stay away from the shoreline and avoid engaging in water sports.
Cathay Pacific today announced that 22 more flights had been grounded, bringing the total number of flights cancelled to 90 this week due to the A350 engine failure incident, which investigation suggested might have been caused by deformed fuel lines. The latest cancellations affected flights traveling to and from multiple destinations, including Taipei, Singapore, Seoul, and Bangkok between Thursday and Sunday. The carrier has already informed impacted passengers and arranged for alternative flights. Meanwhile, among the 15 A350 planes out of the 48 inspected, which need fuel line replacement, 6 has already been fixed, and repair work will carry on with the remaining 9. The aircrafts were expected to be back to service by Saturday. The incident occurred on Monday when flight CX-383 from Hong Kong to Zurich was forced to make an emergency return shortly after takeoff. Aviation safety website Aviation Herald reported, citing sources, that a fire alarm was triggered in the right engine when the plane was still climbing, prompting the flight crew to shut down the affected engine and activate the fire extinguishing system. To ensure a safe landing, they also dumped fuel while in the air to reduce the aircraft's weight. Warren Chim, deputy chairman of the aircraft division at the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, said that the issue could originate from the fuel injection system. This system includes a pipe that transports fuel from an entry point to a nozzle, which then sprays the fuel into the hot inner core of the engine. He noted that there was a possibility of leakage in the fuel pipe, which could have triggered the engine fire warning. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
The Court of Appeal today overturned the Communications Authority's ruling that a satirical RTHK TV program violated broadcasting regulations by insulting police officers and failing to ensure content accuracy. In its previous ruling, the broadcast watchdog said an episode of the now-defunct program Headliner, aired in 2020, denigrated police by depicting an officer popping out of a rubbish bin and suggesting that the force was dropping foot patrols amid a pandemic, and was hence inaccurate, insulting, and rule-breaking, it said. The ruling was also supported by a lower court in the previous trial. However, the appellate court's 3-judge panel, led by High Court Vice President Suzanne Kwan, found both of their interpretations of the broadcast rules were flawed. Justice Kwan stated in her judgment that, although the police were indeed ridiculed in the controversial parts of the episode, the satire was aimed at their COVID-19 response, not at the officers as individuals. She noted that the initial ruling failed to consider the program as a whole and therefore misapplying the relevant code by focusing solely on the social status of the police. The appeals court pointed out that the lower court committed a fundamental error by by not considering the broadcaster's contention to reflect public concerns through a satirical portrayal of the police patrols rather than factual statements. Consequently, the court ordered relevant rulings that had penalized the program to be revoked. Also went through judicial review 3 years ago, the watchdog's previous ruling that a part of the same episode violated broadcasting code by implying police hoarded masks during the pandemic was also overturned by the High Court. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
ICAC charged a police chief inspector and his wife for allegedly accepting over $1.1 million in bribes from a merchant in return for preferential treatment during scam and assault case investigations and insider information. Ho Siu-ton, 38, faces 2 counts of civil servant accepting advantages under the Prevention of Bribery Ordinance and 3 counts of misconduct in public office. The alleged offenses occurred between 2021 and 2023, while Ho was overseeing investigations in the Wanchai Anti-Triad and District Crime Squads. He reportedly received cash payments of $1 million, gifts worth $140,000, and was accused of leaking internal police information, while his 36-year-old wife was charged with aiding and abetting him. Both suspects have been released on bail and are set to appear at the Eastern Magistracy on Friday, with the case expected to move to the district court.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul was outraged and shocked after one of her former deputy chief of staff was detained by U.S. authorities on suspicion of acting as an illegal agent of the Chinese government. Hochul said Linda Sun's behavior was a betrayal of trust after the China-born naturalized U.S. citizen used her position in the government to push Beijing's agenda in exchange for millions of dollars in benefits. Sun and her husband Christopher Hu were arrested yesterday from their luxury home in the suburb of Long Island in New York. Hu was charged for money laundering and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. The couple posted bail worth $2 million and have pleaded not guilty. The indictment stated that 41-year-old Sun and her husband received substantial economic and other benefits, which included all expenses paid travel to China, tickets to top shows and sporting events, and home deliveries of Nanjing-style salted duck, which were sent to Sun's parents. The proceeds from money laundering were used to buy real estate in New York and on the resort island of Hawaii, where Sun owns a condominium worth $2.1 million. Apart from travel restrictions, Sun and Hu are prohibited from meeting representatives from the Chinese consulate in New York before they appear in court later this month. Sachin Katwi, Cable News.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, along with at least 5 other senior officials, has stepped down in a wide-ranging government reshuffle to make way for what President Volodymyr Zelensky referred to as new strength to the nation at war. The resignations have left 1/3 of the cabinet vacant, including the Strategic Industries Minister in charge of weapons production, and will eventually replace half of it, according to the parliamentary leader of the ruling Servant of the People Party. But Zelensky said during his nightly video address that state institutions should be configured so that Ukraine achieves all the results that we need. He also implied the reshuffle will be completed ahead of his planned visit to the U.S. next month, where he is expected to present a victory plan to President Joe Biden. The switch-up came as Ukraine continues to deal with intensified bombardment from Russia, which in its latest overnight raid on Tuesday killed at least 7 people in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv, with 38 injured. On the same day as the changes were announced, a Russian strike on the central city of Poltava killed 51 people and injured a further 271. Zelensky vowed to make Russia pay for the attack and repeated calls for more air defensive support from Western allies. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
A private survey showed that the business conditions in the city had kept on weakening for 4 consecutive months, though the rate of decline was marginal in nature. The S&P Global Hong Kong Purchasing Managers Index fell slightly to 49.4 in August from 49.5 in the previous month, when the gauge rebounded from the almost 2-year low registered in June. Any reading above 50 denotes expansion in business activity, while reading below 50 implies contraction. The gauge had been below the threshold line for 4 months in a row. Subdued market conditions and reduced spending at clients dampened demand, with firms in the manufacturing sector experiencing the sharpest downturn. That said, incoming new business and output both declined at softer rates than in July, as new business from the mainland and overseas both rose. Despite some signs of the downturn easing, sentiment remained subdued. Firms also lowered their staffing levels and inventory holdings amidst falling demand. Meanwhile, price pressures intensified, with both input cost and output price inflation climbing in the latest survey period.